All right, joining me right now is Sarah Westwood, investigative reporter for the Washington Examiner. This comes after the State Department releasing another batch of Hillary Clinton's emails. Those emails showing that top officials in President Obama's cabinet knew that she was using a private email address to conduct official business. Sarah, great to have you with us. What do you think is the juiciest nugget from this new batch of emails that have been released?
What looks to be the first conclusion that we can draw from these emails is the fact that Sidney Blumenthal, the controversial aide that was providing Hillary Clinton with memos about Libya, had a far more expansive role at the State Department than was previously disclosed. Hillary Clinton, in one of the few times that she's ever talked to reporters during the campaign, described him as an old friend who gave her unsolicited advice. It's clear from these emails that he not only advised her on Libya, he was writing speeches for her. He was criticizing Obama and describing ways that she could differentiate herself from him on foreign policy. He was advising her on political developments around the world. It suggests that Sidney Blumenthal played a key role in shaping Hillary Clinton's tenure at the State Department.
Now, we know the Obama administration, and you mentioned this before, did not want Sidney Blumenthal working at the State Department underneath Hillary Clinton. But is there any indication from what we recently learned that maybe this was kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing, and they knew that she was going to do this, they just didn't want to know about it directly?
There's no indication in the emails that the Obama administration officials knew. Of course, that's certainly a possibility that they were aware that Sidney Blumenthal was working for Hillary Clinton. What we do know that raises a red flag is that at this time, Sidney Blumenthal was on the payroll of the Clinton Foundation, and the charity has been unwilling to specify what exactly he was doing there. So critics have wondered if that was just a way to provide Sidney Blumenthal with an income while he worked informally for the State Department. That's something that the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton herself will have to answer for at some point. But there are a lot of questions as to how Sidney Blumenthal was supporting himself while performing what looks to be a full-time job for the secretary.
All right, so obviously the Clinton Foundation, much different than a government entity like the State Department. Is there any way that, maybe, is there anything that would compel Hillary Clinton to release that type of information? Is that something that's going to have to come from Capitol Hill in a testimony type situation?
Right, a subpoena is basically the only way you can get that sort of information from a private entity. But what we've seen is that public pressure has been enough to force Hillary Clinton to move towards transparency in the past. It was this outcry over her private email server use that prompted the State Department to begin releasing these emails in the first place, because Hillary Clinton came out first on Twitter and then in a speech and said, I want the public to see all of my emails. I've asked the State Department to make them public. And that's why we're seeing this happen now. So perhaps if there was just an amazing amount of public pressure put on her to specify what Sidney Blumenthal was doing for the Clinton Foundation, then perhaps we could see that happen, but that isn't looking likely at this far along in the so-called scandal.
Well, recently we saw Sidney Blumenthal. We actually didn't get to see him. He would be in a closed door situation with the House Homeland Committee on Benghazi. Is there any chance we will see him out in more of a public role testifying about this?
That remains to be seen. We don't know how much the Select Committee on Benghazi was able to learn from the closed-door deposition that they got from him. I mean, it lasted for more than 9 hours, so certainly they got a good bit of information. We don't know if it was specifically what they were looking for. And speaking of, the committee is currently in a fight over whether to release that transcript. It's the Democrats who want the Blumenthal transcript to be released to the public, and the Republicans have been resisting it, saying we haven't released transcripts for any other witness. We're not going to make an exception for Sidney Blumenthal. So it remains to be seen whether the
Sarah,
committee is done with Blumenthal.
We want to talk about that internal fighting on the committee. And is this more about the personalities involved than the actual incidents that occurred in Benghazi on September the 11th, 2012? We'll be back with Sarah Westwood right after this.